if we take the modern example of the Empress of India, Queen Victoria may have visited for a few days, maybe a month of India, but ultimately she would go back to England and rule from England, rule India for so many years from England. So she doesn't have to be there to rule it. And that's a sad state of affairs. When I'm looking at the lineage of kings, who am I going to list as the king of India now? Do I list the guy who ultimately runs India but is not present? Do I list the prime minister? Problem is the Dvipas could either mean the 7 continents of the earth, or they could be spiritual manifestations in which they can get there but we can't see. And that is throughout, whether it's 9 Dvipas or 7. And the spiritual side makes sense of how we have such the jambhu fruit being the size of an elephant, 10 millions high yojanas tree. Things that we cannot fathom that seems to be a spiritual side. Even on the earth, within the earth, there seems to be a spiritual side. We could see this was in the case of Priyavrata. He had a favorite place on earth where he would turn into the spiritual world, where he would be surrounded just by mountains. And it was his favorite place to meditate. And Brahma came down to him in that place to persuade him to take up a reign of the earth for 1.1 billion years. There was another king who sent his sons north, east, south, and west, even as a punishment, to reign over the Amlekas. Certainly during Yudhishthira's reign, there was no Amlekas because he was a world commander. We know this from Kali. There was no place for him to reside until later, until the further degradation into Kali Yuga. So he was a Chakravartin, ruler of the world, and everything was pure. When the impurity starts, then the Ionian Greeks, used to be in etymology, seems right that they would be outside of the Vedic area, and therefore Amleka. The Yavanas being Ionian Greek. You'll also find, if you count how many Dvipas, sometimes there are 9 Dvipas. And we can also see this geologically too, where it depends how the continents split up. Even we can delineate between a northern plate and a southern part of a plate, or we can bind them all together. And so we call this lumping and splitting. It's very subjective to say that there are 7 and 7 oceans, or whether it's more or less. We can only see, geographically speaking, of what is etymologically named, what is held by folklore. Certainly, geologically, the mountains are relatively new, mere millions of years old. Himalayas 50. We've got volcanoes just 3 or 5 million years old. We have some places with Meru in its name. In Africa, there is a Meru lake, there is a Meru volcano, but it's very new. So when Hanuman looked in Meru, I was looking at all these Meru places, and unfortunately they were too new and not big enough. Very small in comparison to the I'd say the spiritual magnitude of how Meru is described versus what we have geographically, which would be relatively minuscule. Unfortunately, it's a lot of speculation is all we can do. These concentric layers, boundaries of oceans made of milk or honey or cane sugar or wine. I've subjectively considered or speculated, could say, that they are different specific gravities of found around the world. When you have a temperature change, salinity change, then we do have the same specific gravity as milk versus brine, saline, versus alcohol. I've looked and tried to match these, and I think I got 5 out of the 7 oceans to match their specific gravity. But that would be therefore not taking literally that there is an ocean of wine somewhere. But if we take it spiritually, then there could be an ocean of wine that we can't see, even overlaying the same geographical area. I don't know whether it's in the same area as the physical space, that there is the spiritual space, or whether we would have to elevate ourselves higher on a much higher layer in space. We are told many times in many parts of scripture that we can only see such and such if we have the faith, the shraddha. I don't think we deserve materially to see such great things. There are 7 veils of Durga veiling us, and that's a good hypothesis. If we remove 1 veil out of the 7, then we could possibly see deeper. This could be happening. I could speculate when we see when we invent magnetometry or bathymetry, some greater scientific topological features like LIDAR, when we're X-raying, we're scanning below the Earth and we see the base tens of kilometers down the tectonic plates. We have scientific progress by the phrase of making imperfect apparatus with imperfect sensors.
Yeah.
But there is leeway for the merge between Western science and spirituality to at least say there is progress, if Maya allows it, that we can glimpse a little extra as a treat, as an aid, as a help. Ultimately, Western science, if you look at their spirituality, they have a fundamental issue of matter comes from consciousness, not consciousness comes from matter, the other way around. And so they will never get the correct direction with this attitude. There is actually a wiki site listing all the Nobel Prize winners that are spiritual, just to laugh at them. That's a disgrace. Humans actually create apparatus to help us see things better, as if that apparatus is a robot to facilitate things, to amplify what our diminutive senses can attain. We know by the animal kingdom, there are some animals with higher frequencies or lower frequencies in which we would like to tap into, and so we can mimic them and create apparatus, learning from nature, which I think is a good thing. Looking at the world around us, I could give a good spiritual and scientific analogy to this. In Britain, we have the water board. They are in charge of the whole water systems for the people, the natural underground water with their pipes flowing, and they have the old druidic dowsing method. Do you know the holding of two metal or wooden sticks in the hand and thinking about water, walking over a place and the sticks cross over, and then that pinpoints where the water is, where the problem is, or largely where to find out whatever you're thinking of. The sticks cross over. Have you heard of that? Called dowsing rods. It's laughably the same as spending hundreds of thousands of pounds on the best, latest scientific equipment. When we look at how the result is between the dowsing rods and the most advanced equipment, they are the same. And so they are the leaders of these of the British Water Board using basic dowsing sticks instead of the equipment that they are given, because they are just as useful. Say we have these old traditions of dowsing, but we remember no more, so we can't amplify that douse. However, we can amplify the technology, which is so far at the same stage, but we could work on it to get a little bit more accurate. This is also connected to geology, because geology is not just earth science rocks. It's also the using material science. That's the way geology is moving now. Material science and engineering, the technology to get to the resources. Increase in technology is material, and material is bad. It's said that in comparison to other Kali Yugas, which we don't have much information of scripturally, in comparison to other Kali Yugas, that this Kali Yuga, we are not as materially advanced at this stage, i.e. in other Kali Yugas by now we would be enjoying ourselves, flying to other planets in our own vimanas. It's up to the person whether they want to believe they came from a monkey or from a god, or from Manu. I'd say it's a good thing that we don't have these vimanas all flying around, because that would be a material want to explore other planets, and then we would only be confined to physical planets and not the spiritual side. So we should be exploring ourselves more than the external. I know an acharya that say so. He wants that to be so. He started that implementation, because that if we have pure spirituality, then certainly in Kali Yuga it ends with fanaticism, and if we have pure science, Western science, then it is just pure mental speculation. So it is necessary to meet in the middle, to get a half and half between fanaticism and mental speculation.